Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'll be going over my review of yesterday's Prime Minister's questions as the Russian invasion of Ukraine and wider issues like what the UK can do about it was predictably dominating the exchanges. It's also included an unusually strong show of support from MPs for Ukraine as the ambassador was in attendance. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, yeah, at the start of the session, the Speaker announced that the Ukrainian ambassador was present in the public gallery above the debating chamber, and there was a standing ovation from MPs. And this is not very common. And I think it's fair to say shows the genuine depth of feeling for Ukraine's cause on both sides of the House, even though some MPs on both sides of the House do not share that majority view.
Finally, I want to welcome to our gallery the Ukraine ambassador.
You're right.
Hoyle did actually point out that applause is technically against the rules of the chamber, but the MPs wanted to show their support. And again, that it was allowed must mean, whatever we may think about the politics, that the majority of MPs, a clear majority of MPs, wanted to show that support, and so it was permitted. I mean, these days, let's be honest, there are all sorts of rules broken in the House, so what's one more anyway, right? But on to PMQs. And I think the general theme of the session was brilliantly summed up by a lady on Twitter. And she said, to sum up PMQs, Boris Johnson has single-handedly led the way on everything that has ever happened, ever. Now, I want to raise this point before I go over some of the questions. Actually, only half of this is probably going to be the questions. And unusually, I'm going to be including a couple of backbencher questions. I don't usually do that. But this idea of leading on a particular campaign or project. Now, obviously, politicians of all stripes need to be seen as leaders. This extends beyond just Boris Johnson and even the UK. I recently saw a member of Ireland's Dáil talking about Irish leadership on a related issue. But the thing is, I don't care who leads, as long as somebody does. I don't need to see my country or my government or even my Prime Minister leading. I just want them to do the right thing. I don't care if the right thing is what they urged the rest of the world to do, or they did it independently, or they followed the urging of a different world leader. No relevance to me. I want to see my government imposing what sanctions they can that will hurt Putin in as targeted a way as possible to lessen the harm on innocent Russian people. I want to see my government helping refugees from what even they acknowledge is a war-torn country. I want to see my government doing the right thing, whether it is they who are leading the way or just working together with others or just doing it on their own. I don't care who is leading, but the problem here is not that Johnson is claiming to be leading when he's not. Plenty of world leaders do that. It's that he is claiming to be leading on things that he's not even doing. That's where I have a grievance. He's not imposing sanctions. He's not helping Ukrainian refugees beyond what he has been forced to do by the outrage of the public and even his own MPs. But anyway, the questions. And like I say, I want to spend a bit more time on a couple of other MPs, so we'll apply, I suppose, a lighter touch to the usual suspects because a few other things I want to talk about as well. But I'm also going to start with something else. So I'll begin with one thing Boris Johnson said that I actually wish to commend to everyone. At the start, in a similar fashion, actually, you might be surprised about this, I'm going to praise Boris Johnson and the Daily Mail, in a similar fashion to a Daily Mail appeal that has so far raised, I believe, £2 million for humanitarian efforts. The government launched an appeal and promised to match every pound donated with a contribution from the public purse. He started the ball rolling with £20 million. I'd also like to propose something. Now, it has been pointed out by a few of the people I follow for Brexit trade-related wisdom that you would be better off donating money to established international humanitarian charities than to causes that involve people buying supplies and transporting it to where it's needed in continental Europe. Without trying to crowbar Brexit into this, A well-meaning person with a van load of supplies is going to have trouble. Like, there may be something going on locally to you. There may be a local community group that's raising money to buy supplies. Someone's going to go in a van and try and take it across Europe. You can't do that now. I'm sorry, you can't do that now. You try and load up a van with food and blankets and pop-up tents, whatever you want to take. You try getting yourself to Dover and then you try getting across to France. It's not happening. You know, the trouble getting across our hard Brexit borders, don't. You know, especially people who have no experience of trade barriers. So donate to the organisations who are experienced at dealing with calamities like this. So now that I've covered that rare beast, the Boris Johnson act worthy of praise, let's get on to his glaring failures. Now, the general theme of Starmer's questions, without going blow by blow, were concerned with the British-based Putin-linked oligarchs who were not only getting away with sanctions, but about whom information is difficult to get hold of. Johnson basically tried to deflect each question by saying that it was either not appropriate to talk about it, which is odd for someone who claims to be leading the way on sanctions. Why is it not appropriate to talk about them then? Or that he was doing all he could, which is also odd when the UK is notable of all Western powers for essentially doing bog all. On the subject of transparency, Starmer asked why the register of ownership in the economic crime bill that is currently passing through was not going to come into effect for 18 months. Why is the government giving Russian oligarchs 18 months to sell their properties, he asked. Now, at this point, Johnson even tried to fire back by talking about the crash to the Russian economy at the start of the week, as if that were down to the sanctions that he reckons will be coming online in a month or so, as opposed to the sanctions actually applied in reality by the United States and the European Union. I mean, let's be honest, it was essentially the US coming down heavily on the two biggest Russian banks at the end of last week. Stock markets opened on Monday, bang. Starmer offered Labour support in fast-tracking the economic crime bill. He said Parliament can get this through by Monday. Johnson didn't really have an answer to that, other than he was saying, oh, it's already moving quite quickly, you know, it's accelerating. It's like, I'm not sure how getting it through more quickly would not be welcomed. Why is he turning down the opportunity to get it through more quickly? I mean, if Johnson is trying to claim that this legislation will help, that his hands are tied without it, why not accept the offer to move it more quickly? Ian Blackford of the SNP spent his 2 questions on urging the government to back prosecutions for these war crimes, including the very basic crime of aggression, which he noted the UK often does not pursue. Johnson did say that what we have seen so far definitely justifies a war crime prosecution, but I didn't hear him promise to throw his personal weight behind the prosecutions themselves. But, we'd wait and see on that one anyway, because after all, I don't think he's likely to be Prime Minister when the time comes for such action. Blackford then asked about the prospect of waiving visa requirements for refugees, as the EU have already done. Johnson replied that the EU is different because of Schengen. However, this was deliberately misleading. Although Schengen is driven by the EU, it does include countries not in the EU. In addition, and of more relevance, not all EU members are part of Schengen, and yet they are still taking part in this visa waiver. Ireland, for example, is an EU member outside of Schengen, and they are supporting this scheme. So if Johnson has a genuine reason not to follow suit, he did not give that genuine reason, because what he said was untrue. And that strongly suggests to me that he doesn't have a genuine reason. When asked the same question by the Westminster leader of Plaid, Johnson said that the UK's arrangements are very generous. This is absolutely not true. They've only just been forced to accept Ukrainians who have family here, and that involved dragging Patel kicking and screaming towards some semblance of humanity. At the end of the day, generous can be a subjective term, I accept that, but when we are doing less than every single one of our neighbours, every single one, including the ones that are even further away from Ukraine than we are, I think objectively we can say we are not being generous. Backbench Labour MP Chris Bryant, who, it has to be said, has been warning about Putin for years. He's been very active at the moment because he's one of those, people talk about how Churchill warned about the Nazis for years beforehand. Chris Bryant is the man in that situation right now. Went largely unheeded. He pointed out that we are failing in our pledge to guarantee the territorial integrity of Ukraine. He named a number of Russians who should be sanctioned but are not being, and asked why the government do not use parliamentary privilege to name these people. So for those, again, who are not aware, I've talked about this week. Parliamentary privilege allows MPs to pretty much say whatever they like in the House of Commons, cannot possibly be sued. They can even slander people. I mean, they shouldn't, but they don't have to worry, can I be sued vexatiously or anything like that. They can say what they like, completely free from having legal action taken against them. Johnson just said that we are imposing sanctions and will go further. Of course, that neither answers the question nor addresses the main point. You know, the question was, why does the government not name these people when it's completely free to do so? Doesn't have to worry about solicitors. They're immune to solicitors. But also the issue is not whether we are applying sanctions or even if there are more to come. The issue is that we are not applying them as quickly or as deeply as we should. And we are also helping those who should be sanctioned avoid transparency over their status in this country. You know, Angela Crawley of the SNP echoed Blackford's question about the visa-free entry for refugees again and was given the same guff about Schengen. Now, I will have to say, at this point, there had been at least 2 MPs ask this question. I thought it was a bit of a shame she didn't counter the response before asking the question, really. Because if you're going to repeat a question that wasn't properly addressed earlier, if you don't shoot down the bogus response, you are just going to get another dose of it yourself. You may anyway, this is Boris Johnson, but at least you make it look ridiculous. But still, it did mean Johnson had another opportunity to provide a genuine reason why we do not adopt this visa-free approach to accepting refugees for at least the 3rd time, and failed to do so. I should also point out that several Conservative MPs also asked the government to do more to help with the crisis in one way or another. They were battered away in similar fashion to questions from the opposition benches. No matter what question was asked or what suggestion was put forward, as far as Johnson was concerned, he was doing everything he could and was way better than anyone else in the world, despite the very obvious evidence to the contrary on both points. But then I'm not sure if people noticed, we went full North Korea a while ago when it comes to PMQs. But there we are. That's my look at this week's PMQs and one or two of the surrounding issues. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.